Hello, hello, my friends. It is Hondo, and welcome back to the Knights of the Nerd Republic. You know what to do, and stay profitable.
The Nerd Academy podcast is released weekly at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, available on our website at www.thenerdacademypodcast.com and wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. You can also help support the show by going to patreon.com/The Nerd Academy podcast, where every donation allows us to bring you more exciting content every week.
Hello there, and welcome back to Knights of the Nerd Republic, the show where your favorite nerds sit down and talk all things from the galaxy far, far away. I am your host, Jarod the Dark Jedi Bachman Stubbs, and joining me, as always, is the lore keeper, one Conor Chikiti.
Hello, everyone. I was not expecting the visual. I was just expecting the audio of it, not the whole, like, we see Hondo.
I was very proud of it. It's not that impressive, but it still gave me goosebumps because I'm still excited that I met Jim Cummings. But it is not just Conor and I. We are joined by writer and producer extraordinaire, Mr. Adam Lance Garcia.
Hello. Hi, everybody. I'm Adam Lance Garcia. Thank you for having me on, guys.
Thank you for coming on. Obviously, you have your fingers in a lot of pots. Any Star Wars folk will likely recognize you as the canon Banthaverse Han Solo.
Yes, I am. God, what I love those guys.
They're sweet. Every time the Bantha guys come up, the first person to wish me a happy birthday this year was Matt, and he messaged me on Facebook with a hearty happy birthday, C word that you probably shouldn't say in the United States.
Yep.
That he can get away with saying in Australia, but it's not a good look coming out of my mouth here in the States. But that was my favorite birthday message I got this year.
It's a good one. Matt's all the way out in the future, so he can do whatever he wants.
Exactly.
Yep.
The TVA can kiss Matt's ass. Before we jump into our Bad Batch Season 1 review, though, Adam, where can the living people find you and all that you do?
All that I do. You can follow me on Twitter at Adam Lance Garcia. I talk a lot about Star Wars, and I apologize for that, but I also talk just nerd things in general. My day job is I'm a producer at Condé Nast, specifically mostly right now doing stuff for Vanity Fair. Full disclosure, it's a very dumb day job. I talk to celebrities for a living about their work. I just had a video about Sandra Oh. I've had videos about Tom Hiddleston. I have a Jeff Daniels video coming out. It's a dumb day job. It's very cool, but it's very dumb. And then on the side, I'm also an author. I have a series of novels based on the Green Llama, a Buddhist superhero from the 1940s. I'm a licensed writer, and I'm continuing the canon of the pulps. And to that point, I'm also a writer, producer of an audio drama called Radio Room, and we're going to be doing a new season of Queens of the Sapphire Sea, which is created by my very dear friend and Pennsylvania native, Steele Philippek. And then we're also doing the first season of The Green Llama, which is going to be premiering on November 5th. It's a continuation of my novels and a continuation of the pulps, and it's really cool. I'm really excited about it. And yeah, there's other stuff I can't talk about just yet, but yep, I'm very tired all the time. That's the long way, the shortest way of putting it. Yeah, tired all the time.
You would fit in very well with the Nerd Academy crowd, my friend.
Yes.
The work is far more prestigious, but we are a sleepy bunch. Very excited to have you on.
Happy to be here.
I just want to say up top, and this is something that I've been kind of like reckoning with all week, is that I feel weird about the Bad Batch. I have this it's Star Wars. I'm gonna say your favorite word, Adam. Star Wars discourse has just been such a cesspool for so long that like it's just become so easy to just be like, this is a good Star Wars and I enjoy it, and just kind of ride the lightning of liking a thing. And it feels weird for the first time in a hot minute watching something and going, oh, that was okay. Like, it's like even like we were kind of talking about this earlier, Connor. You made the joke about like the U-shaped response to the Bad Batch of like people going like, this is peak Star Wars, and people going, this is certainly Star Wars. And like for Rise of Skywalker, for example, we talk about it constantly on this show. It is the most 50-50 piece of media I have ever seen in my life. Where there are parts of it that I stand up on my chair and I'm screaming in glee watching it, and there are other parts that make me want to put my head in a blender. But like it gets like a big response out of me. Like even if it's good or bad, like it really makes me go about something. The Bad Batch was very like, it's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
And it's weird not like being made to feel something by Star Wars for the first time in a hot minute. So it's just a weird phenomenon. Yeah.
No, I agree. It is weird because it's also like to your point about earlier, like the discourse is that we're so programmed to like define things as good or bad that just because of the way social media is sort of, that's how we engage in social media. That's what helps fuel folks like on the Phantom Menace side, the positive Star Wars side. Like it's either the best or it's the worst, and so we're sort of, we don't know how to talk about things that are just, they're fine. And weirdly, where I kind of sit, it's like I have criticisms of the show. There are aspects I like, there's aspects I don't like, the things I'm just kind of meh, I'm just meh on the show. But being meh on a show has, in a lot of circles, been something akin to like being told, no, this is clearly the worst thing ever, or you upset people by having criticism. And it's weird because it's like people assume that just because you're critical means you're negative. And it's like, well, no, like I can be critical of the Return of the Jedi, one of my favorite films. Like there's serious problems with that movie, but like I still enjoy the hell out of it. And the same thing with like other, like any media, like you can be critical of things and still enjoy it. But it's weird. It's been a weird time. I mean, it's been a weird time to be a Star Wars fan since the beginning of, ever since the prequels, really. It's been a weird time to be but I find it interesting that we're not able to like, we have to be like, this is the best thing ever, it's the worst thing ever. And then cats like us are just like, that's fine. It's fine. That are like pariahs all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It is really weird. Yeah, and that's the thing is that like before we kind of like run the gamut of like our favorites and least favorites throughout the season, I felt so weird watching Camino Lost. Because I'm just sitting there and I'm like, because after seeing everybody on Twitter going, oh my god, that finale, oh my god, and I was like, oh, like what the hell happens? And I turned it on and I was like, exactly what we knew was gonna happen happened.
Yeah.
Like yeah. And we talked about, and Connor and I talked about this last week. I absolutely was parroting what Alex Damon was saying, that if they had stitched this two-parter into one, like they bookended it with like one massive episode at the beginning and one massive episode at the end. I think that like condensing like Return to Camino and Camino Lost in the one episode would have helped it a lot. But I still was just like, I'm underwhelmed, like I'm not having this big visceral reaction other people are having. And there was a part of my brain that was like, am I watching this show the wrong way? Like, is my consumption of this show incorrect? Am I the idiot here, or is like like? And again, it's not like people who are loving this are wrong for it either.
Oh, right.
Obviously. but I don't understand like the aggressive love so far.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, and we can talk about this more specifically, but I think a lot of people who really seem to love this series overall are people who are, deep down know every aspect of Star Wars canon. I'm very much a Star Wars completionist. Like I try to read as much as all the books that come out.
Yeah.
I watch all the shows that come out. I have a very good knowledge of it. Like, if I talk to a normie about Star Wars, I sound like I'm the smartest Star Wars fan ever. But like if I try to keep up with someone like Alex Damon, it's like I don't know shit. Like I'm cursing this, right?
Yeah.
So,
oh yeah, you're fine. You're good.
Yeah. So it's just like one of those things where it's, so there's certain aspects of it. And this is sort of a larger issue that I'm sort of seeing with a lot of franchises, is that it assumes the audience knows everything about this series. I mean, Marvel does it, Star Wars does it, and a few others are doing it as well, where you kind of go in and they're saying like, well, the audience knows why Camino is important. The audience knows why those I can't remember their names, like the girls from the end of the Clone Wars that showed up again.
Trace and Ralph.
The Marquez sisters, yeah. Like they know, the audience knows why they're important. The audience knows why a Rancor is important. They know who Cad Bane is, etc. So when they show up, it's like, oh my god, But I do, and that's true for a large section of the fandom, or any fandom. Like when they release Black Widow and they're just like, they go in understanding, oh, this is between Civil War and Infinity War. So we understand why this matters. But to the sort of casual audience, I don't think Bad Batch specifically did a decent enough job making the things that are important to the canon, important to the narrative of the series, important enough to the characters. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example. It's like, and there's other things that we can talk about, but we just kind of, I remember watching and be like, yeah, I understand why Camino's destruction matters to the canon, but I've never seen them do the work to make it matter to the batch. And beyond that, they didn't really make us care about the batch in a really fundamental way, because they were all kind of tropes, with the exception of Omega. But even then, she's kind of a trope, So I just don't think they did the work to make it earn to a casual audience. Like you can't dive into the Bad Batch as a Star Wars casual. It's no one's first Star Wars. I think Clone Wars is a good example of this series. Like, if you don't know Star Wars, that was your first Star Wars. It kind of introduces you to all the characters. You get to know the world. You get to explore everything.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. That never occurred to me, that this could never function as someone's first Star Wars.
So it's like one of those things where, I think this season is the most consistently well-written season of any first season of any TV show that Star Wars has done. However, it's not a good introduction to any Star Wars show. Like, like you could sit someone down and watch The Mandalorian, and mind you, I'm not a huge fan, and if you hear music, it's because there's a concert right outside. So it's not, I don't come with a theme song, much as I wish. So I like Mandalorian the first season. I'm not a huge fan of the first season of Mandalorian, right? I think the second season was better, mostly because the writing was sharper, the directing was better. They kind of knew how to use the volume better. They had a better sense of how to tell episodic Star Wars on TV. I think season 2 is a better season. But what this first season of The Mandalorian did that really well that the Bad Batch season 1 didn't do is make us actually give a shit about these characters. We understood what Din's journey was. We understood why he's caring for the child. We understood his journey. So then when season 2 comes along and it becomes the guest star Rama, you got these guest stars come in and build upon Din's arc. You are invested in his story. it's just like, oh wow, and here's Cobb Vanth. That's awesome, but I also really care about Din. And they never really did that with this season of The Bad Batch. You're stunned silent.
No, it's the music.
No, the music.
Oh, it's the music.
The music had a really funny cue that was just.
That's great.
That was phenomenal.
This happens every month. I never know when it is. It's really great. It's great, guys. I'm so happy. That it's here.
That's funny. I'm not even mad.
Wow.
That was spectacular. There was just like a really great flourish there for a second that like pittered right back out.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that was impeccable timing because like it was silent and then that happened.
Yeah, I was about to follow up. I'm like, I definitely hear the music, and I got distracted by it, and then
I mean, maybe it ultimately been so swinging.
Yeah.
But go, yes. So that's yeah.
I think you're right, and for me, going into this show, I've said this 1,000 times, and now that everything is in the can, and we're kind of looking at the show as a whole in this episode, I went into this saying, I am not incredibly excited for a TV show about the Bad Batch. What I am excited for is a show about the Imperial transition. And the show kind of had two avenues it could take. It could be a character-focused journey, like a character-focused, fly on the galaxy's wall of watching the Imperial transition, or it could be a kind of like tour through the galaxy watching the Empire take control. And in a weird way, it feels like this first season went 50-50 and it's both going to be fall in love with these characters, but also here's how the Empire established itself. Here's how quickly it did. And I found myself over the course of this season by far enjoying the more here's what the hell the Empire is doing. Here are the atrocities and the lies and the things that the Empire are doing that creates the galactic empire that we know. And it was, I think you put it really well. I enjoyed the Bad Batch, like the unit, like Clone Force 99 a lot. You're right about the tropes. I think that one of the reasons why, at least for me, I wasn't super fazed by they're all a bunch of walking tropes is that those tropes are written really well. And D. Bradley Baker's, batting 1,000. Like he hits it out of the park with each one of these characters playing, doing the same voice, but with a little extra seasoning for each one. And and that helped me get past he's the nerd, he's Rambo, he's big and dumb element. But other than that, there's not a whole lot of substance. And as somebody who has that, never compare myself to Alex Damon, there's a reason that man had a belt for 3 years. But as someone who does know their shit, who very much is a part of the kind of segment of Star Wars fan who could probably adequately teach a galactic history course. I know 3 of us are that kind of fan who could, very feasibly do that. I knew all the important stuff. Like you were saying, I know why 2 canon, this is what they did with Camino. There was still a part of me that was aside from the nerd textbook, I didn't get a lot out of this show. I didn't get a lot out of the show other than entries into a nerd textbook.
Yeah.
There are high points. There are really big high points. There's the run from Battle Scars through Bounty Lost. That's the best chunk of this show. Those 3 episodes right in the middle that's such a good run of episodes, in my opinion. Like that's, and I'm kind of like starting to move into like favorite episode here. But yeah, Conor, opening thoughts before we jump into, or Adam, you unmuted for a moment. I didn't know if you were about to say.
I'm muting myself so that you don't have to listen to the music the entire time. But no, I was going to say something you brought up at the beginning is like, yeah, I really wish they, I kind of wish they had done the Dark Times. I would have preferred it as like, if they were like going to do a straight continuation of the Clone Wars, like this clearly is, I wish they had stuck to the format, the anthology format of the Clone Wars, and made it the Dark Times.
Been saying it for months. I feel so validated that a smart professional said the thing I've been saying. Thank you,
professional. Because that's the thing. It's just like we talk about. I talked this with Maggie Lovett, and I was talking with her about why is the best episode, one of our favorite episodes, with Hera. And as someone who didn't love Rebels, and I know that's sacrilegious, but like I was more interested in that storyline. Like this would have been a better episode had it not had to like dovetail back into the Bad Batch. If it had been like, let's use the Bad Batch as like these recurring characters, and like show how the galaxy is transitioning, it would have felt like a better series, because to your point, like they couldn't figure out which one they were doing. They couldn't decide if it was an anthology series or a Bad Batch series. And I think partly because of that, it kind of fails. But Conor, I'm sorry, I stepped on your toes.
It's completely fine. I'm just kind of going with what you were saying, Adam. The like whole 50-50 route. I think you kind of see it from the first episode with Order 66. Like the thing to remember is that I'm pretty sure they weren't going to do Kanan, and someone just brought it up to Dave. And Filoni and Dave was just like, "Oh yeah, that'd be cool." And then just put Kanan in. And like as someone who read the comic and as someone who's into the books and comics as a Star Wars storytelling medium, the kind of retcon in the first episode kind of pissed me off.
Yeah, from what I understand, Filoni doesn't read the books, so that's probably part of the problem.
Like, I think it's not even that.
Just
I think
like
it was
his mentor.
I mean, it is that, but I think it's more. I don't know how true this is, but like there were some rumors I've heard about how he and the comic writer Greg Weisman, they weren't on the best of terms, like friendship wise. So like this might have been like a stab in the back sort of thing. I don't know. We'll probably get the full story in like 3-4 years.
I think to that point, it's probably just more mundane than that. They were just like, probably he's like, I haven't read it. What kind of happens? All right, I'm gonna tell my version of it, because I want to tell my version of it, because he doesn't read the books, as far as I know. Like the same thing happened with Cobb Vanth. They kind of like did the sort of vague version of it, so that we were like, all right, it almost lines up. So, I think that's like one of those things where, especially when it comes to any creative medium, like, and again, I don't know for certain, but based on most things I know about the folks, from what I hear, it's just Occam's razor. The guy didn't read it, and then he told the story. And again, there's nothing inherently wrong with that, because Jarod, to your point, same thing Lucas did. They shouldn't have to be completely bound to what's kind of happened. I know I do it in my own writing, where like I'm able to hand wave some stuff like, that a version of that happened, but this is what really happened. So it's I would just say like, don't read too much into it. It's Occam's razor. They just did something different.
Yeah. And I think and the thing is, it's not even that, like, I think Pablo said it best one time, where like stuff like this happens and just like the big details are kind of, the broad strokes of the story are still the same. His master dies, he escapes, he almost gets killed by clones. Well, and like, there have been, I've talked with a lot of fans who are big into the books and comics, and they've like sort of I think it was them, and I think Alex Damon did a video on this where like he and others I've talked to, they were able to like sort of combine the two and make both of them work. And I think in a way they could both still work in some really weird Star Warsy way, but just I'm still mad.
I mean, but yeah.
I mean,
I was going to say,
mad, but like I'm not on Twitter like tweeting at Dave Filoni, you ruined Star Wars, but like it's just it sucks.
I mean, but don't forget, like Anakin Skywalker was killed by Darth Vader, and then he became Darth Vader in between two different films. So it's like, consistency between Star Wars media is not always a thing that has existed. Has not been a thing that has existed ever. I mean, what was it?
Especially on screen.
Oh yeah, and don't forget, like Return of the Jedi's novelization established that Owen Lars was Obi-Wan's brother, and then that was completely ignored. So it's these are not egregious discontinuities, but it's frustrating. I get it. I get it because I read that stuff too, and I'm like, okay, but like
I think what makes it weird is that it's coming from Dave Filoni. I feel like there was this myth that like a lot of the behind the scenes stuff at Clone Wars and George and Dave himself kind of built up that, and it's not that this is necessarily inaccurate, but the idea that Dave Filoni is this like elder lore keeper and that like in his sleep can just minutia about Star Wars. And I think that there's this like part of us are like, oh yeah, like Dave Filoni knows everything about Star Wars. So he there's never going to be a continuity error. And then when you happen upon, okay, they're repurposing the Order 66 stuff with Depa Billaba. And it's like, oh, okay, well, this is a narrative. There's a narrative reason here. And then there's little things like, why the fuck is her lightsaber blue? That it's like where, and again, it's minutia. It's stupid. No one's going to burn. Again, any reasonable person with any sense on the planet is not going to throw a piss baby tantrum over Depa Billaba's lightsaber color. But it's also weird that they got it wrong. It's one of those and it's one of those fun things, like with the Orn Free Ta situation, where the entirety of Star Wars Twitter is debating the heartbeat of a character 99.99999% of us fucking forgot about.
Right. Yeah.
The Orn Free Todd discourse was hilarious. That was just such a.
It's also it is an interesting thing, and I think that it happens because we do take all this stuff seriously. We do enjoy it for what it is, but I feel like there's a level of part of the discourse where it has to everything needs to line up because everything lines up. But again, I go back to and I as someone who read a lot of the EU. I own the EU, every novel except for a few Young Jedi books, and I'm gonna get those. Those were never consistent. Those were radically inconsistent, and then they were radically inconsistent with the prequels. And I think the best worst thing Lucasfilm did was after the with the sequels was saying everything is now canon, everything now counts. For a long time, let's not forget there, during the Legends era, there was the levels of canon. There's G canon and C canon and T canon and U canon and something canon and not canon. And, it was you got to pick and choose, where I think now it's very much everything's canon. So everyone assumes that everything's going to be lined up and that it's going to be perfectly fit together. But when you have so many different voices and so many different people writing novels and there are things that are going to slip through the cracks. And then there are folks who will say, look, we don't want to be completely bound by this. Let's do the broad strokes version of it. And they'll get the basic versions of it. But look at little specifics wrong. And that happens. That happens with everything. It happens between like in the Marvel films that everyone says is like it's all planned out. They're not planned out, and they're all just like they have to sort of retcon things. I mean, like I just look at what they're doing with the Manchurian, like the 10 Rings. How do we like retcon that because we changed our idea and how we change things in? It happens all the time. You don't take it too seriously. Just ride the wave, man.
Absolutely. With that, I think we're going to jump into some of the topic points here. Adam, favorite episode of season 1? Favorite and least favorite if you want to sandwich them together.
I think this is going to be, so my favorite is the premiere. I thought that was the strongest. Okay. I thought it was strong. I liked how it sort of set up the world. I liked how it set up the characters, the stakes. It felt really exciting. I really was excited about where the series was going to go because I was like, oh, wow, I went into the series like, I don't want a series about the Bad Batch. I don't really care about these characters. Oh, this is an interesting story idea. So that was I just thought it set up the world really well and the era really well. Least favorite, and this is going to be weird to say, but my least favorite were the Hera episodes. And I'll tell you, and it kind of goes back to what we were saying before, was that it showed what was wrong with the season as overall. Like the best episode, like arguably of the Bad Batch was one that did not have the Bad Batch in it, except for like a cameo, right? I just think that it exemplified where if they had just picked a lane, it would have been a better series. And I think it's just like just the reliance upon characters that are not directly that are mattered more to the wider canon and the wider fan base, but not necessarily these characters and their journey and their growth as characters. That was probably like why it's not necessarily my least favorite, but it's exemplary of why it didn't work for the season overall. Didn't necessarily work for me.
I concur with you on least favorite for all the reasons you just said. Conor, favorite and least fave.
So I've talked about favorite before. It would be Replacements. It's not surprising because written by Matt. And I think really the cherry on top of it with why it's my favorite is because it was released on George's birthday. And out of all the episodes that were released, it felt the most like Lucas of it because like there was all this dark stuff happening with Crosshair and that moment of
Crosshair committing war crimes.
Yep, Crosshair committing war crimes, him ordering his men to shoot the civilians. But even through all that, there's that like bright center of hope in Omega, and like where she, I think it's the Ordo Moon and the Ordo Moon dragons, and like her trying to, without violence, she's able to get away from them, and so just I thought that was a wonderful episode. Least favorite, I'm not sure. I think just after Replacements. Again, I'll just, for those watching in the video version, this is basically my arc with Bad Batch. It's a U shape. So it goes from, wow, this is really cool to like, this is solid, it's pretty fine, to then the last 3 episodes being really good. So I'm not really sure what my least favorite is because I can usually tell if I hated something in Star Wars, which like I really don't, but I can usually tell if I strongly dislike something in Star Wars. And with Bad Batch, there was never really that like emotional reaction I would have. It's most of the time after I watched an episode was like, that was enjoyable. That was fine. And like, there were moments where I was like, that was really cool. But then like, I think about the episodes just as a larger narrative. And I'm like, this feels weird when you put it in here and not like here. Because again, we've talked about it before, Jarod, but like to me at least, if all the Sid episodes, because I love Sid. I love the things that they did with Sid, but like where they were placed was just odd to me. If they put them earlier in the season and then put all the other episodes like Hera and Fennec Shand and everything in the latter half, or maybe even switched it around completely. I don't know. It would have felt less clunky to me. So again, I don't have any least one. There's no one episode that stands out as my least favorite. There were a few really good standout episodes and really good standout moments in the episodes I wasn't big on. And I mean, by big, I mean like the way I would put it is that like my favorite season of anything Star Wars would probably be Rebels season 4. I need to rewatch it. I've been trying to rewatch it and just life has gotten in the way. But like each of those episodes never really misses a beat. And I always get something very joyful out of it. And by the end, I'm like, this was really good. This was really not essential Star Wars, but it was really solid, really good Star Wars. And in the middle part of Bad Batch, I was like, that was decent Star Wars. It didn't wow me, but it was pretty decent. So again, going back to it, I don't know my least favorite episode. It's just kind of.
That's a fair answer.
Yeah, it is, and it's weird. I think the thing that's interesting to your point is that we're in this point when we have more Star Wars than we've ever had in our lives before. You know, I mean, we had the novels, and depending on your age, you had like the prequels. I mean, I grew up and there was the VHS box set, and then there was like the special editions, and I had the EU to sort of film those little bit of gaps. But like, we've never had this much visual content, you know. I have that one too. I have the I have to find the photo. I have like the original box set that came out all the way back in the day, and the THX, and I still have them all. And I'm like, I know I'm never going to use them, but I have this like shelf of all the different VHSs, all the different DVDs, and then like the Blu-ray box set of the only one I don't have at my altogether is the 2011 Blu-ray box set, just because it fits smaller. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But like, we never had like this much. We have books, comics, TV shows, movies. We have more content than we've ever had in our lives, where there's now just on-screen Star Wars. That's fine. And it's always been like, when the prequels were either the greatest thing, the worst thing, depending on your age group. Like, I was young enough to be like, this is the best thing. There was Catzel with me like, this is the worst thing. Same thing happened with the Star Wars sequels. You know, like everyone, like they're the best thing. I sort of go, they're 2/3 the best thing. But conversation for another time. But now we're getting to a point where there's going to be so much coming out that it's not going to hit with you all the time. Like I hear a lot of people love Rebels. I mean, I've tried with that show. I watched the entire series. I watched it from beginning to end. And to something that Jarod pointed out earlier, where like we all kind of knew at the end with Camino's going to get destroyed eventually. You know, we all kind of knew that was coming. The same thing happened with me in terms of Rebels. I'm like, yep, that Kanan's going to die because he's not around in the A New Hope, and yep, like Ezra's gone because he's not around in New Hope, so clearly he has to get pushed off. So for me, it never hit. But that's fine because like I can watch anything with Rey and be really excited. I can watch something with like the Clone Wars and love it. But like at the same time, I can watch the season 1 of Bad Batch and be like, meh. There's books I've read that I'm like, meh. Like the new Thrawn books. They're fine. But then I read the High Republic and I'm like blown out of my mind. Like, so it's a weird feeling to be like at but it's a normal thing to happen where we're getting so much of this thing that we love that we're not going to love or hate everything. We're just going to that's kind of where I'm at with Marvel. Like when Marvel started, like it was the thing that I always wanted in my whole life. Like, oh my God, they're doing an Avengers movie. They're all building up to, and now I'm at a point, I'm like, it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Slightly adjacent to the point you're making, I think, and this is a conversation for like Nerd Academy proper, but I think that the like level of output and quality of the MCU has made it impossible to have an okay comic book movie, because I feel like every time an okay comic book movie has come out in a post Marvel's The Avengers, it gets ripped to shreds because it isn't the Avengers. I just think that like things that clock in at a C get clowned on harder than the F minuses.
Yeah, but because I think to that point, and this is true of really everything, like almost like the F minuses have like the benefit of being an F minus. Like Venom is a good example of a movie that like is just so bad it's good. Like that movie it shouldn't work. And I had a great time because it was so bad, but it was great because it was bad.
That's how I was with Space Jam.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah. So yeah, it's weird. Like I think it's a very valid point you've made.
For me, favorite and least favorite episodes, I think it's Reunion. And we talk about it all the time. Me and my finale bias, you know, I always like the most recent chapter because it's like it's the moment of catharsis, all that stuff. In a very rare instance here, Reunion I think is my jam. Everything about this episode I loved. You know, going into the Bad Batch with the very quick realization that Crosshair would be the antagonist, or the closest thing we'd have to a central antagonist. I was curious as to what they would do with that and how far they would go. Because the whole point of the Bad Batch as they're presented in the Clone Wars is everybody has their special abilities, and Hunter has his, you know, like echolocation type thing and is a natural born leader and tactician. And having the whole team go up against one of their own, I was like, okay, is Crosshair just going to be bloodthirsty maniac? Or is he going to, you know, take the role of the tactician? And in this episode, he kind of gets to hang out in the Star Wars tactical savant roll call, in the way that we watch him in a very cold way use 99's tactics against themselves. The way he's like, okay, he's like, make enough noise so that we make him go over here and then y'all sneak over there. And it's like, yeah, I know these people are batshit crazy enough to try to sneak through the engine. Turn that shit on, fry him. That like there's not only is there a coldness to him, but it's that tactical, just it's beautiful. I love it. It's such a great episode. I think it's one of Crosshair's best moments as the villain. When the show is still trying to make him be the villain of this story. And I think that's why it's the strongest for me. I also just like the whole thing of them fighting through, you know, the corpse of this Venator, which, you know, is dripping with symbolism on its own. Having them all in conflict there. A very close second probably would be Bounty Lost. The Cad Bane stuff was phenomenal. The fight with Fennec Shand was amazing. Those two episodes together are probably my favorites. And for all the same reasons Adam said, the Ryloth arc for me, you know, it like you said, it demonstrated the weakest points of the show. That this very well could have been The Dark Times anthology. And that it's kind of the weird thing with this block of episodes, because Battle Scars, you have the Rex, everybody's removing their chips element, and that's good. That works really well. Reunion doesn't base the whole episode around the cameo, but that's all anybody talked about.
Right.
By the time that episode was over.
What was the cameo in that one?
That's whenever Cad Bane shows up, shoots him.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's a larger conversation about the guest stars, cameos, or whatever you want to call it. But we'll finish your point.
And then Bounty Lost, like, the part of the episode I was most enthralled with was watching Cad Bane throw down with Fennec Shand, where it was like, you know, these are two bounty hunting bamfs who I did not think ever would have lived to fight each other. You know, Spencer and I talked about trying to like reformat the Patreon versus series to like accommodate for non-force sensitives. And I'd be lying if I said that I didn't consider like, ooh, we could do Fennec Shand versus Cad Bane. Like, we could try to do a breakdown for that. And it was like, because like Cad Bane's got to be dead by the time Fennec Shand's active. Clearly we were wrong. But almost all of these episodes come back to like, hey, here's the cameo that facilitated this episode being great, with the exception of Reunion, because it's kind of that stinger that overshadows everything, a la season 2 of The Mandalorian. But yeah, I think those are my favorites and least favorite.
I agree with a lot of what you just said. That's why I'm shaking my head like that. Yep. Yeah. No, because yeah. Just to jump on what you said there, because it is that like it's weird. And I sort of insinuated it at the beginning, but like the thing about like season 2 of The Mandalorian, the reason why it works for me is, again, the writing, directing, acting. They kind of figured out what they needed to do, and I've heard criticisms, and it's a valid criticism, that the show becomes a guest star orama. You know, every episode, with one or two exceptions, is a character that you've seen before. It's Ahsoka, it's Luke, it's everybody. But I thought, like, at least in that series, they did a good job of sort of building each character to tie into Din's arc, and it had the benefit. And this is a big thing. This goes further than I think anyone realizes. It has the benefit of seeing all these characters in live action for the first time. Cobb Vanth, we've never seen him in person, and it's played by Timothy Oliphant. You know, like, we've never seen like Ahsoka in person, and it's played by Rosario Dawson. Like, we haven't seen post of Return of the Jedi Luke at his height before, and there he is with a weird face, but he's there. You know, it's like there's that visceral, like, you sort of like kind of forgive some of these things that you're like, we're spending a lot of time with Ahsoka in the Jedi. You know, we're seeing a lot of her to the detriment of Din's storyline, but you're kind of distracted with like, oh my God, we're seeing Ahsoka in live action for the first time. Same thing with Boba Fett. Like, I thought, like, again, I think it's all really well done, but like when Boba Fett goes crazy on in that episode where I forget the name of it.
The tragedy.
The tragedy. Like, yeah, like it's great, but like it kind of becomes the Boba Fett show. But we haven't seen Boba Fett alive post Return of the Jedi, so we had that sort of benefit. And I think that was my biggest criticism. There's two things about that whole cameo things. It's a few things, actually. It's like, one, you know, so there's another podcaster, Twitterer person that is, a few people have said it, like they don't mind the small galaxy, like they don't understand the criticism. They like seeing Star Wars in their Star Wars. Yes, that is true. I like seeing Star Wars in my Star Wars. I like seeing those connections. I like seeing those things. But at the same time, look at Empire Strikes Back. Everyone considers Empire Strikes Back the majority of people consider it the best Star Wars film. Name one thing like that is brought over, like that's like a cameo from the previous film. Yeah, it's the second film, so it's a little different. But who's Lando Calrissian? New character. Cloud City, new place. Hoth, new place. Yoda, new character. It's all new. They don't try to like recreate the thing you liked before. Even the whole Vader stuff, that's recontextualizing everything you've seen and understood about the narrative. to a lesser extent, Return of the Jedi does that. Like even though it kind of doubles back on some things, you've heard about Jabba, but here's the first time you're seeing Jabba.
Yeah.
You're seeing a lot of new things that were sort of insinuated and hinted at. Even the prequels, even though the prequels were criticized for making the galaxy too small, like to Lucas's benefit, like he introduces Naboo and Padme, Jar Jar Binks, like the Clone Wars, everything is kind of new. And so I don't necessarily dislike a small galaxy, but you've got to earn it. And I don't think they earned it in the Bad Batch. Like if everything's a cameo, if everything's a guest star, then nothing is. It turned something that should be special into something that's common. And I think that's kind of where my criticism goes to. It's like, it's really cool when Rex shows up, but it's in between other people showing up that we've already seen before. It's not as special anymore. It just becomes retreading things we've seen and characters we know. It doesn't introduce anything new. So there's other things that I have issues with the guest star cameo thing, but I just think that that's part of my issue with it.
Well, I think you absolutely have something to have a lot to say there, and I agree with you. Last week, Spencer was on for the first time in a hot minute, and he was talking about how he said a lot of the same thing, and he kind of like ran through on like an individual basis and was like, okay, can you justify this guest appearance? And and on some level it's like, okay, Cad Bane, well, it makes sense that the Empire is going to pay top dollar for, like, at this point in time, the best bounty hunter operating in the galaxy. Much as I love Ming-Na Wen and Fennec Shand, however,
yeah, kind of a stretch.
I know, but and then you get into like the Filoni criticism that it's always Filoni's character showing up in Filoni's shit. Like, okay, do you have it be Boba Fett? Do you have it be whatever? Or do you go with the bounty hunter Filoni had a hand in creating, to face the other bounty hunter Filoni created? No, I agree with you. I think there's a lot of these that you can absolutely like cut the guest character out of. And
and it's also one of the. Oh, sorry, you go on, Connor. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna pretty much just agree with that too. Like, just that's something I never thought about really with the cameos of like, how do they help the Bad Batch's story? And I think really I think Fennec kind of helps because she kind of shows Omega a bit of like how to take control for yourself, but it's touched on. I wish there was more. And then like Rex, because obviously like his whole thing with the clones, but like every other cameo, you could have just put a new character in. So
go on.
No, it's just basically the way I always put it. And I've had friends of mine talk to me like, "Hey, what do you think about the cameos?" And I'm like, they're too frequent. That's really my thing. It's like, let's say if if it was Rex, I think too frequent. And the fact I mean, again, Adam, I agree with this too, of how like it would have been beneficial if Bad Batch went with the whole 3-story arc structure. I really think that's what they should have done. And I think that would have benefited the cameos a bit more because, like, it would have been a cameo and arc, but, like, you would have had 2 episodes of, like, say you introduce the cameos in the first episode and then the other 2 episodes, it's focused on the Bad Batch. And so you get more development with them and then just, I mean, as much as I freaking loved seeing Cad Bane, again, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of what to say, but like, it's just too much, too fast with the not too fast, but too much, too frequent with the cameos. And just, if they took some of them out, I wouldn't have minded. I love seeing the Martez sisters, but like,
did we need them then and there, right?
Yeah.
But to that, and that's one of the weird things about like transmedia these days, because I have a friend of mine, and we've talked about this a bit. Key and I, where, there was a franchise that we were almost worked on. I can't say what it's the name of it, but like part of our sort of job that didn't happen, but the thinking behind it was, if you're going to introduce, let's say, like you have a story set in this year with this archaeologist, you want to introduce an archaeologist, why not make it this character from this novel or this other extra media? Like, why not bring that person in? Because that pays off the characters, pays off the character arc, interactions that happened over there, but also at the same time for some fans, like, oh wow, it all matters. But there's a limit to that. And I think that's exemplified in the Bad Batch, where it's just like, at some point you got to say, like, you got to keep on introducing new ideas, because if you start doing it all the time, all you're doing is just like, you're not expanding the world. And I don't think Bad Batch did a good job of expanding the world in any meaningful way. They sort of showed like, oh, it was a lot of checking in on this character. Like, hey, remember that character? This is what they're up to. Remember that character? This is what they're up to. And to sort of compare it to like the High Republic, the reason I'm really enjoying it is I don't know these characters. I get to meet these new characters, these new locations, and then occasionally, like, hey, there's Yoda. That's cool. Yoda's here. He's younger. That makes sense. Or like it's like, oh, hey, they mentioned Naboo. Man, I wonder what Naboo's up to right now. Like, what is that planet like? There's these little touches that make it special. And again, I'm sort of repeating myself at this point, but it is sort of like it when something is. It's like eating ice cream for dinner. Like, when you do that one time, boy, is it great. Your parents let you eat ice cream for dinner? Like, because, mom's out of town, your dad's tired, and like, ice cream for dinner it is. This is the greatest night of your life. Then you do ice cream for dinner every night. It's not special anymore. And I think that's sort of like what was going on with the Bad Batch, is that there's a lot of things in it that in isolation are really cool. But when it happens all the time, it stopped feeling special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. And
because like, it was cool seeing some of these characters, like seeing the Martez sisters. I think I was surprised. I was like, oh, sweet. It was really cool getting a sort of checkup on like what these guys were up to. But like, at the same time, it's, again, the thing that Mando season 2 does really well is like, they tie into the main story pretty well.
And there's also, sorry.
No, just that was really it. Yeah.
Someone, I won't name names, like when they announced like the whole Kira trilogy that's going on in comics, they were like, they said that, oh, this is a bad day for small galaxy critics. And I thought, like, that is a really big misunderstanding of the criticism that I've had about the Bad Batch, because it's like, well, yeah, I don't like that it's a smaller galaxy, but also, when was the last time we saw Kira? When was the last time we saw these characters ever interact with these? It's been chronologically within the galaxy 20 something years, 30, like 20 something year or so. Like, yeah, it's about 20 years, 15 years since we saw this character. It's been 5 or 6 years, not 5 or 6 years. It's been 3 years. I have no idea. I've lost all track of time. What year is it? 2020? No, it's 2021. Shit.
It's been 3 years.
Yeah. So it's been about 3 years since we've seen her. So like, oh wow, that it feels important. It's not necessary. Again, it's not that the galaxy is small. Is that it's stopped being special when we have these cameos and these guest star roles and whatever. It just became so frequent, it didn't matter anymore. It became rote, as opposed to, something to like call up your best friend, like, oh my God, the Martez sisters, they're in this episode. Remember, they were great. Now they're back. But so,
I think that one of the other things with the cameo stuff, something I think is also very important, and I think that with the small galaxy conversation, there is a point in which you need to kind of like look at how much does this cameo make sense to happen? Like, if, and that's the other thing, is it like now that like with the canon reset that happened with Disney, again, it was this double-edged sword of like everything counts, but we need to fill the timeline back in, because we went from a franchise where we knew the dailies between movies. Every waking moment of this goddamn franchise between movies, we knew to an insane level. And now there's all these mysteries that is created by the new canon. And it turns Star Wars into like, and again, like the decision to have J.J. Abrams kick off the new trilogy made a lot of fucking sense, because the whole franchise became a mystery box. Who's still canon? What's going to happen next? There's all these mysteries floating out there now.
And to that point, I think it's one of those things that the EU did fill in all those gaps. And I think, to a lot of detriment to the fandom, because like something that my co-producer on the Llama and Radio Room discussed a lot is this idea of distant mountains, that there needs to be mystery. There needs to be a noble. I had a really great interview with Dan Abnett. We're talking about Warhammer. And he talked about like, we know the answer to these things, but we're not going to tell you, because there needs to be something in a franchise that you don't know, because whatever version we tell you of this, it's going to be a lesser version than the idea that you come up with in your mind. And the EU, while it did answer a lot of questions with some answers that are better than others, like we knew everything. So everyone kind of goes into this news canon being like, well, we need to know everything. And I think that they're not necessarily doing this, but I think that what I hope Lucasfilm does is let certain things remain unanswered, remain a mystery. I don't need to see what Obi-Wan did every single day while he was in the desert. That's what I hope is. I hope to get a snapshot of his life in Kenobi. I really hope to, I don't want to know everything that Ahsoka's been up to post Return of the Jedi. I want to just have an idea. Like, I don't need to know what everything Luke's been up to. Like, just give me an idea and I can fill in the gaps, because whatever version they come up with, no matter how awesome, is never going to be as awesome as the version that I had. I mean, that's the issues with the sequel trilogies for a certain section of the fan base.
And further to that point, with the there's a lot of stuff that's left unanswered, and we're creating new characters and creating new stories to kind of fill in the gaps again. Logically speaking, because again, there's a whole lot we don't know about what happens to Darth Maul between, come find me on Dathomir and Rebels. We don't know what the hell is happening to Crimson Dawn in that window. Maul doesn't even say the words Crimson Dawn come Rebels. So that must be a distant memory for him. One assumes, okay, I guess Crimson Dawn's defunct. No, actually, Crimson Dawn is very active, very powerful, and being led by Kira, not far away from Return of the Jedi. It would be weird if this galactic kingpin didn't show up. Didn't in some way cross paths with the Empire, especially because of her connection to Han Solo. Like, those are one of those instances where, like, I don't think it's, oh no, like death to the small galaxy or whatever. It's no, like, it doesn't make sense for her not to be an important player at this juncture, and like with the Mandalorian, I think that Luke Skywalker being the Jedi, it was such a brilliant bait and switch, because on paper, he is the obvious answer. But due to the whole aging thing, Wakanda, in theory, would have been hard to get Mark Hamill to do it. And how well you can just deep fake him into looking like it's the 80s again, right? So then we all start doing mental gymnastics about it's Ezra, it's Kanan, or not Kanan, it's Cal, it's Ezra, it's all of these. It's like, okay, let's pull up a Rolodex of people who didn't die in Order 66. Trying to figure out, well, what Jedi is it? No, like, it was the obvious Jedi And if it were any other Jedi, it would have been weird.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, like I remember, I'm a huge fan of The Last Jedi. I wear that proudly on my sleeves. This is a humble brag. I'm sorry, but like one of the coolest shoots I did recently was with Elijah Wood, and he and I just talked about how great The Last Jedi was, and like how terrible Rise of Skywalker was. And I was like, what is my life? Talking to Frodo about the fucking Last Jedi. But even that all being said, like I still was like shaking with excitement when I saw Luke.
Yeah.
But like that nostalgia aside, I remember showing the episode to my girlfriend, and she's like, that really wasn't that well written, because like, and she's a normie. She knows Star Wars. She really enjoyed The Mandalorian. She's like, it's just like that episode is not that great, well written. It's sort of like it leans in on this nostalgia. But to your point, yeah, there's no other. I said, I'm like, there's no version of this that it wasn't Luke showing up. Like I knew the moment like things were going bad. I'm like, Luke's going to show up. That's the only way the story's going to go. Luke's going to show up. X-Wing, Luke. It's Luke. Oh my God, it's Luke. But like, I knew that. At the same time, it's just like, because that was just, there's no other we're going to show like this character, Ezra, who like, let's be honest, not a lot of people know compared to everyone who knows Luke. So, it's.
Yeah. There comes a point where these cameos where you can say small galaxy all day, all night, whatever, that some of them, like, it's the only logical conclusion. Like I was saying, like the Empire is going to hire the best of the best to track down Omega. Cad Bane showing up makes sense. Rex showing up to get the chip, like Rex showing up and then them going, oh yeah, we still have our chips in. Him going, yeah, we're gonna go fix that now. What the shit, which his reaction's incredible. Rex showing up makes sense. They didn't pay off on the Rex stuff as much as they could have, but it's fine. Like when the cameo makes sense, that is where, like, on paper, it could not have been any other Jedi but Luke. It would be weird if Kira is not on the Rebellion and the Empire's radar. Like if Crimson Dawn is basically the only direct competition to the Hutt cartel, how could they not be? Like even if they don't know about the fact that Han and Kira used to be a thing, if your whole story is about Han Solo is like the frozen Han Solo is like changing hands and everyone's trying to find him. If Kira's still alive and you don't bring her into that story, that's a huge wasted opportunity. When it makes sense and it works. And when it doesn't, that's where you get into small galaxy, I think that there comes a point where like characters have to cross paths at some point in some way. Yeah.
But like at the same time, it's like, I think it's a balance, because it's like,
absolutely. Yeah.
It's like, you can make it a very small galaxy, but like but you have to make sure that so this is going to sound like patting myself on the back, and I do apologize. But I try to approach, I've written a few crossover stories in my writing career. And one of my favorites was Sherlock Holmes meets the Green Llama. My publisher asked me if I can do it. The first thing I said was no. Like, that sounds like a terrible idea. And I slept on it, and I was like, wait, I know how to do it. And what I did, the reason why it worked was that he wanted me to do it as like, what if they're solving the same mystery at two different time periods, like 1800s and 1940s. I'm like, that is boring. And also I feel like that's been done a billion times before. So I was like, well, what if I looked at the timeline and it was like, okay, late 1930s. We don't know when Sherlock Holmes died. He's an old man. So it's and we know where the llama is. He is at the beginning of his career. So it's a sunset sunrise storyline where you have these two characters crossing over at very different points in their life. And those interactions lead them forward into where their next, like, it helps the Green Llama decide to become the Green Llama. It helps Sherlock Holmes know that he can hang up the cap finally. So I feel like that's how you need to approach. Again, that's how I approached the story, and I think that's how they kind of need to approach these cameos and crossovers, is making sure that like this character's arc hits that character's arc and they bounce off each other. And I did not see that happening in the Bad Batch to the extent that it made it feel good, in the way that they did with The Mandalorian, and the way that they did with other storylines, with the way they made it with the sequel trilogy. Like, the thing that I love about the Last Jedi is that Luke's arc and Rey's arc and Kylo's arc, they all hit and they matter to each other, right? You have Rey like, where am I going? And then Luke, who is essentially, he's a legacy character. He's like, here I am. And that interaction between the two of them completely changes their narrative. If they had not met, their stories would never have gone on. And in the Bad Batch, what storyline can you point to where they met, and with the exception of maybe Rex and maybe a couple of others that I can't think of off the top of my head, that like, if they had not met, either story would have gone on the same way. And like Cad Bane shows up. Yeah, of course, it makes sense that he's there, but how does that interaction change the Batch? How does that interaction change Cad Bane? And there's a degree to that. There's a balance, because, you know, Cad Bane is not a character with a distinguished character arc. He doesn't need to leave this series as a changed man.
He's a stake setter. Like, it's like, yeah, oh shit, they need to contend with Cad Bane. Like, this is not going to be pretty.
Right, but that interaction didn't lead to like really anything new. Like, you can say like, well, like Hunter had said like, Omega, you need to be like, we need to train you, but like, is that really fundamentally different than every single other time that like Omega went missing? Like, so yeah, you know, that's sort of like the thing. It's like, I didn't think they had that, these small galaxy moments matter. And like, that's what I kind of see what they're doing with the Crimson Dawn stuff. Like, it actually feels like Kira's showing up. It makes sense to the narrative, makes sense to the galaxy, but it feels like it's going to affect these characters moving forward, which is awesome.
I need to get
I
caught
could
up
not
on
agree
the main
more.
Star Wars run. I'm so behind.
I'm so behind too. I'm actually reading. I'm reading the War of the Bounty Hunters like sort of in isolation, because it's Charles Soule, and I heard it's really good, and I was like, oh, let me check this out, and I was like, oh man, Kira's in it. Fuck, I'm in. You know. So yeah, yeah. That is. So don't worry. I'm years behind on the main Star Wars line. So you're not alone.
No, you're not. I'm also. Shouts out to Bro Axiom, because I haven't picked up a copy in a hot minute, but you guys keep me informed. Shouts out to the homies.
Indeed.
Okay, we're going to talk plot here. Adam, I want to ask you first.
Was a mistake.
When? At what point do you think Crosshair went without his chip?
I don't know. I have no idea. That's the thing. Like, I remember reading an interview with like it's if you paid attention, like you could see what happened to his head, and I was like, okay, that doesn't work. I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I saw that in your show notes, and I couldn't tell you, because to my mind, Crosshairs was a nothing character that barely showed up, and was like, we were told we had to care about him because he was the bad of the Bad Batch, but I have no idea. He just showed up, and I was like, oh, God, here we go with this story. So I have nothing to add to the story. Connor, what did you think?
You know, at first, like when the season was going and then that reveal happens, I didn't know too. But then when I got on here and started talking with Jarod, and he posited that, oh, it might have been Braca when he got just completely burned. And like that whole side of his face was just burned. I was like, oh, that's a good one. And then there was another part of me that was thinking maybe the intensification of the programming in the first episode might have fried his chip. If not immediately, like over time. I don't know. It's a toss up between Baraka or when his chip got intensified in the premiere episode for me. So I don't know. I'm just happy that's the route that was taken instead of, hey, let's get your chip removed and then just
Winter Soldier.
Yeah. And then, Winter Soldier, complete 180. It's like, no, this is who I chose to be. And so that makes Crosshair to me a very, very compelling character, especially heading into season 2.
I will say I kind of wish it happened. I wish they'd been more explicit, and I think it would have been a lot more interesting a character if it's like, oh, I had it out for the entire time. I wish that would have been like, because then that makes him a lot more compelling of a character. Whereas like if it happens in this season, it's sort of like, so he was midway through and he's like, oh yeah, I'll keep on going. Whereas like from the get-go, he's like, no, I'm going to betray you because that is the right thing to do because that's what I believe. That's a bit more of an interesting story than like doing it midway through. That's me.
I, like Conor said, my whole thing with, I think it happened whenever he got roasted extra crispy. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, to Adam's point, I think Crosshair is grossly underutilized in this season. I think that, like, the show, like, anytime he came on screen, just drew up in quality and, like, intensity because there's a history there. Even though there was a little bit of that, like, oh, hey, you're supposed to care about him because he's a part of the Bad Batch. He's still, like, yeah, like, that's exactly the point. Like, he is, so you get invested in, brothers turned on brothers type shit. So the only real way to determine that change is based off of the limited times we see him. So if he's going from on Braca in Reunion, where, like I said before, he straight up gives the order to just fucking kill Omega. He's 100% okay with her getting killed. And even if he was bluffing with the, put your blasters on them, he still had them turn on that engine. And Omega was in there. And he knew that she was. Like, he was very clearly okay with killing her. And the next time we see him and Omega in the same room is, him immediately going, you idiots brought her here?
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Like, so that's why, like, I'm basing everything off of Reunion. Is that if that's the moment where we see him, again, very okay with killing this little girl, to, like, chastising them for bringing her along out of clear concern and going, get her the hell out of here. Like, there's like the fact that he, like, legitimately wants to keep her safe and thinks that they're idiots for letting her come along. That's where it had to have happened. And the only meaningful moment we have of Crosshair between, and I'm like, again, like, I keep flipping through, like, the episode list, but, like, he doesn't come back again until at the end of the Ryloth stuff. And then we see him at the end of War Mantle for like 30 seconds. So like the most recent important moment for Crosshair, if we were paying attention, it had to have gotten fried, at which point he took it out. But that gives him a long enough window to still be committed to the Empire and have made that decision. So that's where I think it happened. But that's just me. I think it's the only one that makes sense considering how sparingly he is used. Favorite members of the Bad Batch itself. The face Adam is making, I feel like I feel like the answer is going to be funny intentionally or otherwise, but I'm going to kick to you first.
I guess Omega. I like it. The thing is, it's like there. So I'll put it this way: like, I think Omega and Wrecker are the most likable but I don't necessarily think they have much of an arc either. Hunter is just Rambo. I feel like Tech could get shot out of a cannon and nothing will change. Echo is completely underutilized. Omega, just because she's unique in that way, and Wrecker is just kind of fun to watch. But they're just kind of, they're fine. They're fine.
Valid. That's a good answer. Conor.
Pretty similar to Adam. I would say Omega, Wrecker, Hunter, and Crosshair. I think Omega because she has the most character.
Do you just want to say the whole Bad Batch?
Not really the whole. Like, they're all cool, but like Omega because no, you're good. Omega again because I think she just has the most character in the show. Hunter again because I think he has the most potential as a character, and there's touches, and again it's kind of the same thing with some of the stuff. It's kind of not the same. It's the one thing that Bad Batch to me has kind of going for it going into the second season. There's a lot of really cool, just really small stuff that's touched on, but not expanded on. And like Hunter as like, is he a father? Is he a soldier? That sort of thing. Like that sort of dynamic, I hope gets explored way more in season 2. Cause it was really interesting when they touched on that early in the early episodes. Crosshair, I think honestly, because of Return to Camino, like his whole Kylo Ren-esque talk and then just him blasting his own troopers was just, that got a cheer out of me. So,
I mean, for me, like I feel like, man, it's Wrecker and Crosshair. I didn't want it to be the obvious ones for me. Adam, we have a running joke that I make fun of myself for. Some of our regular listeners and patrons of a long time have also made the joke that I have a type. When it comes to any story, I have a type. And big, dumb, stupid idiot and hero turned villain / anti-hero arcs are just, I'm a hoe for both. And it's very easy to elicit a very big reaction out of me when you put somebody in dark colors and make them do morally questionable things. But also they're like, you made me feel bad and now I'm a murderer. And I will just immediately co-sign any of their actions. And with Crosshair, I was like, we're just going to get Star Wars Winter Soldier, and I wasn't that invested. And then the moment he went, I don't have a chip, you son of a bitch, and I'm still upset with you, I was like, oh, wow, you just became my favorite character because now everything's been recontextualized and you're terrifying. Wrecker because I that's how I am with my sister. Every time, she and I are making our way through the Clone Wars. She got super into the Mandalorian when it was, when the first couple seasons were coming out, and going into the Jedi, we did a speed run of the Clone Wars, where I was like, "Here's greatest hits. Here's how you can get to know Ahsoka," and then watch the Jedi, and we're making our way through, like the whole show now. Like we just began season 3, and I can't wait to watch the Bad Batch with her, because I know that there's going to be that immediate, like, oh, hey, that big kind of dumb guy talks to the little girl the way you, the big dumb guy, talk to me, the little girl type conversation. Shit like the, all right, now defuse this bomb, kid. Type interactions. He's like, no, I was gonna let you blow yourself up, you idiot. I really like Wrecker because of his interactions with Omega, and even though like he's the tropiest of the tropes, like he like the again, big dumb brute also, I'm afraid of heights. Give me my teddy bear. You know, like it's grating, but it's a testament to D. Bradley Baker, the fact that he makes Wrecker likable, despite how rookie like he feels like he's written at times. It feels very like, oh hey, it's funny because he's big and strong and kind of stupid, but also like really, really sensitive. Very tropey, but he's him and Crosshair for those reasons. Yeah, I think we got to the end here. So closing thoughts and a letter grade, Mr. Lance Garcia.
Closing thoughts. I think that I'm hoping that the second season of The Bad Batch dives more into who the Batch is as individuals and as a group. I really want to see them break new ground within the universe, because as it stands right now, to some of our earlier points, I feel like everything in this series has happened exactly how I expected it to. And as someone who likes it when Star Wars surprises me, I really hope to see more of that. While there is something to be said about comfort food entertainment, that you kind of know where it's going to happen, what has always appealed to me for Star Wars is when it surprises me, when it does things that I don't expect, because that is what they've been doing since Empire. Things happen that you just don't see coming. Honestly, ever since A New Hope, when they kill off Obi-Wan halfway through the movie, I want to be surprised. And as it stands right now, Bad Batch, it leans a little too heavily on guest stars and cameos, too heavily on the wider universe at the expense of the characters at the core of the season. And while this first season is consistently written, you don't have the highs and lows that you have with like the first season of the Clone Wars, the first season of Rebels. You don't have like I think of Rebels, like the first season ends, it's like this is the most Star Wars thing that's ever happened. But like I struggled to that first season, where this was very consistent. It looks gorgeous. D. Bradley Baker is an amazing actor. It's all, again, I can't emphasize how well the acting and the visuals are. The writing is consistent, but it never kind of hits the highs that you want from a Star Wars for all the reasons I've sort of said. So I give it a B-. It's fine. It's a decent Star Wars, but it's not great Star Wars. It's not terrible Star Wars. It doesn't have. I can't recommend it like The Mandalorian. I can't also like recommend it like the holiday special. It's so just middle of the road. And while there's something valid about a middle of the road Star Wars, that's where it is. That's where it is.
All right. I think that's a fair grade. Conor.
Pretty much everything that Adam has said, I pretty much agree with. It's just like, again, I think the biggest, I just lost the word too. Darn it. Like the biggest sort of thing I'm not big on with this season was just, again, the cameos, just too many cameos. As cool as it was seeing them all again.
Too cameo, too furious.
Yeah, it was. Bad Batch season 1 was basically 2 cameos.
That didn't deserve a laugh, Adam. That did not deserve a laugh.
That's why I have myself muted. That way you can't earn it. You didn't get that.
But
the audio listeners will be aware that Adam will not be aware that Adam laughed at my very shitty joke. But video listeners, the true canon version of the show.
But yeah.
Canon.
2 cameo, 2 furious, and it didn't focus. I think it just didn't focus enough on the Batch's characters. What I was hoping for was that Omega would have an episode where she would just kind of slowly change each individual member. And so I was a bit disappointed when that wasn't the case, because I feel like just her being a sort of catalyst for individual arcs in the Bad Batch, and then like their whole unit changes holistically. I feel like that would have been really cool of a story avenue for them to take, and I'm hoping they take it in season 2 because, but yeah, letter grade, I would give it a C. It was fine Star Wars. It wasn't, there were some really cool standout moments, but like as a whole, I wasn't wowed. So I'd watch it again if someone was like, hey, you want to watch Bad Batch? I'd be like, hell yeah, let's do this. But like, if I had on my own time, I feel little to no desire to rewatch it. At least as of right now. That could change when season 2 releases. But right now, yeah.
You know, for me, to grade in a very Anthony Fantano type way, I'm feeling a strong C+ to a low B-. You know, like in that range of like the technical. Because that's the thing. Going all the way back to what I said at the beginning, the show isn't bad. Like there's nothing bad here. It's that this show falls victim to almost every single ailment with Star Wars storytelling, and it becomes uniquely like aggressively average. And you know, one could say that being incredibly average is like the worst thing to be, but you know, Star Wars has been a lot worse. It can be a lot worse, and you know, I enjoyed it, but there's just things that kept me going. Like, oh yeah, you know, cool. You know, I keep seeing people say, you know, the mid batch, and it's like I can't fight you. I can't, you know, I can't run to the Bad Batch's defense the way I can a lot of stuff. Like in the way that I wholeheartedly like want to defend the show and be like, it's not just the mid batch. It's like, you know, no, yeah, actually it kind of is. It kind of is exactly the mid batch, and it is aggressively mid, but it's not bad either. It looks beautiful. It looks incredible performances all around. I look forward to season 2. And my biggest like fanboy complaint, we only saw a little bit of Order 66, and that kind of disappointed me. But that's my biggest like dude bro fan take I'm going to have here, is that I wanted more Jedi genocide because Papa likes his Order 66, but that's beside the point. With that, Adam, if you could please tell the lovely people one more time where they can find you, all that you do. We're so honored by you coming on. This is a
always
great
mistake
time.
always mistake to have me on. Well, you can find me basically on Twitter at Adam Lance Garcia, on Instagram at Adam Lance Garcia, on TikTok, where I apparently created hashtag Luke Talk at Adam Lance Garcia. Basically,
Good
type
job
in
on
Adam
that
Lance
one.
Garcia. I'm stunned. That was a dumb thought that came up with me after I texted Alex Damon and Molly. I was like, well, like, I wonder. And then it went nuts. Anyway, basically anywhere, just type in Adam Lance Garcia, you'll find me. If you are interested in anything that I said about storytelling, and even if you agree or disagree, just type in Adam Lance Garcia on Amazon.com or your favorite bookseller. You'll see the novels and short stories that I've written. If you go to the Vanity Fair YouTube, you'll probably see some stuff I've produced, Wired as well, Ars Technica as well. I've done some stuff there. And as I mentioned, right now, Radio Room is the audio drama podcast that I'm doing with my co-producer, Steele Philippek. We are re-releasing the first season of Queens of the Sapphire Sea, which is a series created by Steele. It's excellent, and I don't say that just because I'm working on it. I love those characters, and I love writing those characters. It's basically Tailspin, but it's like set in the Mediterranean. It's a ton of fun. We're beginning season 2 next month, and then that'll be running for 4 episodes, and then at the end, November 5th, the new season, the first season of The Green Llama is coming out, and I'm very excited about it. I'll be dropping a trailer on Monday, so I'm really excited about it.
very, very excited to see and listen to all of those things. We are kindred spirits in the way that we both accidentally went very viral on Star Wars TikTok for very stupid reasons. I don't know that it's stupid. Luke is stupid.
Yes.
What you posted was very funny. The concept of Luke was stupid.
Stupid.
Yes, with 2 U's. But yes, thank you for stopping by. Always a great time. One of my favorite Twitter follows. Also, if you just kind of generally need like a countdown to Star Wars projects.
Yeah, that's me. And I'll tell you, like, the reason I did that was because I get asked, like, why do I do the "We Are One Day Closer to" whatever Star Wars thing? I was in a bad place and I was sad, and I remembered, like, oh, there's episode 9 coming, and we were one day closer to that. Like, every day we're one day closer to this new Star Wars thing, and people responded to it, and it made them happy, and they kept on doing it. And I know I get some flack from people, like someone's like, who would do this every single day? Isn't that kind of lame? And I'm like, yeah, it is kind of lame, but also I get more positive feedback of people being like, you know what, I was sad and there's a thing I can be excited about. And that's it. I just do it because it makes people happy. And that's, that is what Star Wars should be. It makes people happy. So, you know what, if it makes you excited about the thing, like, it's just, yeah, I like making people happy.
Snaps all around. Snaps. Conor, where?
Yes. Where? Good question.
I'm stealing Travis's bit. Where?
Where? They can find me on Twitter at DepaBanana. They can find me on Instagram, which I rarely use, at ConmanJFO. They can find me on Facebook. Also, I rarely use, at the Alliance of Star Wars Fanatics. A Facebook
That's not
group
true. You use it weekly.
Barely.
Weekly.
At least not as frequently as I used to. But anyway, you can find me on Facebook at the Alliance of Star Wars Fanatics, a Facebook group I help admin, where our basic philosophy is to talk Star Wars positively and constructively, and we just leave the hate at the door. And then you can find me very, very slowly writing articles on Star Wars on StarWarsEditorIG.com. It's not Star Wars Editor, it's SWEditorIG.com. That's the website name. My latest article, which hopefully won't be my latest article soon, because like I have a bunch in the works, but my latest article is an interview I was so graciously able to do with one of the writers of Jedi Fallen Order, Matt Miknovitz. It was a wonderful time, and yeah, go read it if you haven't. It's great.
Absolutely.
Jarod.
Yes.
Where?
Thank you. I gotta tell Travis to watch this one because now everybody's stealing his bit, and it's my fault. They deserves it. It's funny.
Where?
You guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at DarkJedi2552, and you can find the Nerd Academy podcast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and on our website www.thenerdacademypodcast.com, where, if you're feeling generous, you can donate to our Patreon page. Speaking of our patrons, thank you to our $10 alumnus, the Waffle Wizard, Delta 9, Feige's Boomer Burner, Michael Armburst, Zach Knaus, and Jarod the Light Sith. Haha, very funny, you goddamn troll. Looking forward to what the hell you're going to change your name to in September. Be sure to consider the $5 tier where you get access to the Nerd Academy Movie Club audio commentaries, the Knights of the Nerd Republic Versus series, and Heroic History 101. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, rate, comment, do all the things. We are honored that you all have joined us, and may the Force be with you always.
Stop!